I was just thinking about something. You've heard me say before, some people have never been touched by unconditional love. And what I mean by that is, like, you can be in wonderful households. I grew up, we all were loving towards one another and not. I mean, we had I think, a typical mess of a family, right? But everybody's household is that mess. So it's not that there wasn't love there. It's that we never learned how to love ourselves properly. You've heard me say, like, know what that means, where it's like, even so, the family, right, that you grew up in may have loved you to the best of their abilities, to their capacity. And they can only love you as much as they love themselves. And they really do love you, right? Like, their heart really is bursting with love for you. And still, it might not, how can I explain this better? They keep visualizing and showing this, and I'm having a hard time verbalizing it, where it's like people really don't necessarily know what love is because they don't know how to love themselves, honor themselves, be true to themselves, stay aligned with themselves, be kind and put themselves first. And again, not in this selfish, arrogant, prickish way that I think people think of automatically when people say love yourself first, or be selfish, in that you're loving, you put you first. It's like that can quickly get tangled and people get ruffled, and it's like, that's their work to do that. So know what that means. But it's also, we can only let love in as much as we love ourselves. So if we don't love ourselves, and if we hate ourselves, and we see that's the dynamic you grow up in, where people don't love themselves. But again, we're not using those words, right? Like, people aren't saying, oh, I hate myself, or I'm like, it's just behavior, right? Like, if you're always people pleasing, if you're always bending into pretzels, if you're snapping at people, all these things are indication that one does not love oneself, and therefore can't fully love you, because they can't even be present with you because they're getting triggered by past events or worried about future stuff. And then we start to encompass that. We start to behave in such ways. We start to take that on as right or wrong, or that's how to behave. We start to mimic those behaviors. And we form our own patterns and our own beliefs and our own mishinges and our own mess and lies and ties. And then we don't love ourselves because we don't feel good. We don't know what it means to love ourselves. We don't know how that feels. And that silent voice begins of, you're not good enough, you're not worthy. All these lies get built up and piled up and stockpiled. And there's all this disconnection. And then even when somebody else learns to fully love and accept themselves, they start to do that internal work. They start to clean up that mess. If you're around others who aren't doing that either, they can't even receive the love, the overflow, because they're holding it at bay, and they could be looking at you as bad or wrong or mean when you're overspilling with happiness or joy or peace or love or whatever, because it's just not a vibrational match. So that's why I feel like every time I finish these, it always comes back to the same thing, where we have to fully love and accept ourselves, and we have to know what that means. And until we do that internal work and clear out those lies and ties and confusion and delusion, and be around other people who are vibrating at that level too, we're just going to continue hurting one another or hurting ourselves. And then it's like you can't ever, it's like move forward in life, right? Or feel good. And it can be a challenge for some of us when we've lied to ourselves for so long that we aren't worthy, or we aren't good enough, or we aren't, the list is endless, but that's what it usually boils down to, is you're not loving yourself. You don't think you're worthy. And that's a lie. And so you have to continually combat that lie and heal yourself and love yourself, and learn to allow that to satiate you and fill you and flood you. And And it is being touched by unconditional love. It's like fully understanding why you did what you did when you did and loving yourself through it, right? Even when you can get horrified by the patterns that you have, when you start to see what you did, because sometimes we blind ourselves to our own truth, and so when you can see your pattern or see what you've done, that's horrifying. So you got to eat through that. And then forgiving yourself and realizing why you did what you did and loving yourself and congratulating yourself for recognizing the pattern and breaking it, for making the changes, for doing the hard things. And all of that is loving to you. And it's not always easy, right? Sometimes it is. I mean, there's so many knots and tangles and lies and confusion and delusion up in there, especially when you haven't gone up in there in a long time, that sometimes it can feel more challenging. Other times it can sweep a whole bunch out, a whole big old cobweb, no problem. I just thought that was interesting. I had heard some comment about, I forget what they were saying, but it made me think of what I always say about you have to love yourself, because you can't, it's like offer others unconditional love or accept unconditional love when we're not healed ourselves. And I think a lot of people get confused on what love actually is and what it feels like and what it looks like, because they've never felt it. They've never felt unconditional love. That doesn't mean they didn't grow up in a household that offered them unconditional love, but if they weren't healed or whole, they could never feel it or receive it, right? So there's some kids that, they could grow up in the best of the best of the best of households, and you'll hear people say, I don't know what happened. Well, you might not have known what happened. You actually might not have known things that had gone on, right? Like sometimes things happen and the parents don't know about it, or there's all types of things that occur. Even bullied at school, or people said this or people said that, and we made all these mishinges or wrong connections or confusion or delusion. And so we start to blame ourselves, and we start to hate ourselves, and we start to lie to ourselves, and we tell ourselves all types of bullshit lies in an attempt to protect ourselves, right? Our ego doesn't know any better at that age, and so it does the best it can, and so then that kid can't even, necessarily communicate those concerns, those worries, the confusion, the delusion, what happened. A lot of times you can't verbalize it. You don't even know what the fuck happened. You don't even know, and nonetheless, they continue growing with those lies getting louder in their head, keeping them suppressed and keeping them from healing. And I still am not able to maybe say it in a straight line, where it's like, it's not about anybody outside of you. We all have blame and shame and guilt, and we all carry it, and we all have to forgive outside ourselves, recognizing it all happened for us as it was supposed to show us where we weren't loving ourselves and standing up for ourselves and doing better for ourselves. And so that's always the challenge and the lesson, I think, where, how can you better love yourself, honor yourself? What is your truth? What feels good? What doesn't? Are you topsy-turvy? Do you even know if you're topsy-turvy? And meaning up from down, good from bad, right from wrong, for you. So many times people are so used to looking to see if everybody outside them is comfortable. They don't know if they're comfortable. They're not looking to see if they're comfortable. They're looking to see if everybody else is. They don't know if it feels good or not. Like they're so disassociated from being in their own body. And anyway, I do think it's sad. I think even sadder, I think most people in the world can understand this message. I think most people in the world don't even realize that they've never felt unconditional love, meaning they have never fully loved and accepted themselves and met unconditional love. They haven't reached that high. They haven't reached that level. They haven't, and then it is always the goal to attain that again. It is always the goal to get back there. And it takes the consistency of daily check-ins, right? And we, of course, can go one extreme or the other. We start to do it too much where we get disillusioned in thinking you have to behave in some certain way to attain it. And then we lie to ourselves about all that. And then we add blame and guilt and shame when you don't. All this nonsense is just human behavior. And the only thing that we really need to do is determine if it feels good or not, if it's right for us, if it's taking us to where we want to go, and be kinder and gentler with ourselves, more understanding and accepting of ourselves, and willing to take the deep dive now and then when we can't figure things out and we're still hurting. Where are all these lies coming from? Why do I believe this? What is happening here? And then implanting the correct information over and over and over again, and that takes a tremendous amount of time. Again, depending on how long you've been lying to yourself, right? You might not have even heard or seen or recognized the silent voice that had been running for so long. So it could be God knows how many years before you wake up and you finally hear it and go, oh my God, I didn't even realize I was telling myself that, or I was believing that, and I was holding myself to that belief, even though it feels terrible. I can't tell you how many of those I've had to uncover, unravel, unstick myself from, cut all those ties and lies, delusions and confusions. I keep hesitating to say that. I keep wanting to say it's not easy because it wasn't for me, but that doesn't mean it won't be for you, right? It's just we're all wired differently. Like somebody else, they could see it, snip it, move forward. See it, snip it, move forward. See it, snip it, move forward, right? And that's beautiful. The better you get at that and integrating it and changing your neural pathways, the faster, the better. The more you're able to stay present in your current life and living and loving and laughing. And nonetheless, hopefully that helps somebody understand what it means, because I do think people get confused on what love means. And of course, if you've never been never been touched by unconditional love, you've never fully loved and accepted yourself truly, truly, deeply, then you wouldn't know what love means. So when you're touched by it, sometimes sometimes another can say something that opens up your heart, and that's touching you with unconditional love. They're giving you that example. But it's really just opening up your own heart to feel your own love and acceptance. So it's like if you haven't ever cracked open your own heart to feel it, you really don't know. And you hear me cry a lot when I crack open my heart, right? Like, there's been times where, honestly, I feel like my whole life up until actually recently, and I still do, but where every time I would connect with him, I would cry like a fucking baby. It was like prying my heart open, but then it almost hurt, right? It was almost like, because it was so unfamiliar, I would just bawl and bawl and bawl to be, and it felt good, but at the same, do you hear what I'm saying? Like, it's like so unfamiliar and so needed. It's like we get so deprived from it, we don't recognize it. And people think, loving themselves is like, go into the spa for the day or something. Not that that's not, but that's not what I mean at all. Yeah. And then again, I think the challenge for me has also been, it's like once you consistently reach those heights, it's also staying within balance, right? And not forming new lies and ties, but we do. We're always creating new limits until we bust through them and create new limits and bust through them. And you can look at that backwards. So you have new goals. And if there's something blocking you, it's just a belief limit that you need to dismantle. Okay. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. You can now purchase an audio journey with me using the link below.